Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 35. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora. Thanks for being back with us here on this Wednesday show. Steelers Nation Day, we got a busy show today. A little bit later on as well, we have a Seahawks beat writer. That is Greg Bell. He covers the Seahawks for the Tacoma News Tribune. You can follow him on Twitter at GBellSeattle. But Dave, we have a whole lot to talk about today. Not only what happened on Sunday's win over Denver, but all the roster moves and transactions that have transpired over the last 24 hours.
Absolutely. This has been a busy team here as of late here, and obviously, as you said, several moves, especially practice squad related there, and got some unfortunate news, which we kind of expected when it comes to JuJu Smith-Schuster as well.
And yeah, let's start there with JuJu, confirmed by multiple reports. Really, we had this sense of it, during Monday's podcast and throughout Monday. But although not officially placed on IR yet, he will be soon. JuJu Smith-Schuster undergoing surgery on his shoulder. Mike Tomlin confirmed yesterday during his Tuesday press conference his season is expected to end, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Supposed to be out the next 4 months. So the only scenario would be some sort of maybe Super Bowl return, but that's a good problem to have if Pittsburgh can get there. I forget the exact nature or specific name of the injury, but some sort of severe dislocation. We'll have hopefully Dr. Mel weigh in on that at some point later on in the week. But bottom line is JuJu's season, unfortunately, has come to an end.
Yeah, and as you said, we'll put it out there. We'll see if Dr. Mel's schedule, what it looks like for Friday. Hopefully have her on talking about that injury of JuJu's and your groin and you. We will talk quite a bit about some groins, I have a feeling, if we could get her on Friday as well, too. Yeah, this is good a place of any to start. And, there are a lot of questions, obviously, that we're getting and a lot of speculation out there right now. Has JuJu Smith-Schuster played his final snap with the Pittsburgh Steelers? And it's a fair question, obviously, for sure. I think, and especially with what he signed for this past offseason here, he is scheduled to have the remaining 4 years of his contract void 5 days after the Super Bowl. That was part of the him signing and being able to stretch out that money for salary cap purposes. Even so, and I thought long and hard about this, Alex, trying to look at all angles of this and dedicated a terrible take to it on Tuesday as well. I think it's a 50-50 proposition right now. Obviously, JuJu was unable to really help us market value much of any so far in the first 5 games. Still not really catching the football down the field a lot. Been nice if he had been able to get a couple of those throws a couple of games ago there against Denver. That would have probably helped in that matter. But for the most part, kind of been the same old the last few years. Obviously not entirely his fault the way he's being used. But stats are stats, right? And market value is market value, and he certainly didn't get a chance to improve that. However, JuJu's still young by all standards, especially by NFL standards. The Steelers drafted him young. He's still young, although he's been in the NFL for 5 seasons now. This will be his 5th season when it comes to an end. What's his asking price going to be? Do you think he would want to stay in Pittsburgh? I think he would, even if Ben Roethlisberger doesn't return. But more importantly, is there a better deal out there for him potentially long term? And if the Steelers do re-sign him, they're probably going to want a multi-year deal with him to help kind of with that cap space, unless all they can get is maybe a 1-year deal and do another situation where they they do some voidable years there. So personally, I think JuJu would want to stay. He's obviously built his brand here. I think the Steelers, if at all possible, would like to have JuJu back. I mean, I think, and disagree with me if you want here. I think it's a guarantee that this team's going to draft another wide receiver finally this coming in 2022 after not drafting a wide receiver in 2021. That said, there are worse top of the depth chart at wide receiver to have when you talk about Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and one JuJu Smith-Schuster, and then a rookie to go along with it there. So it is way early in this. I understand a lot of people wanting to talk about this. I came to the conclusion that as we sit here right now, kind of a 50-50 proposition with him.
Yeah, I'm under 50% of his chances to return. Even coming into the season and before the injury, I thought it was more likely than not he'd go somewhere else. I think a big reason why he returned, and he said this many times, is that because he wanted to come back and play with Ben, and that was kind of the thing he thought was the best thing for him, and we assume that Ben will retire after the season. So kind of a franchise retooling and opening a new chapter. JuJu may finally decide to walk away from that. I'm with you. This team is very likely to draft a receiver. I doubt they're going to go 2 years in a row without drafting one, and this team is going to lose James Washington in all likelihood in free agency. So I have no doubt Pittsburgh would love to have JuJu back, but I think he might have already been mentally preparing to potentially go somewhere else after this season. His market is obviously, tanked, and, that's going to be an aspect of things as well. But my hunch has been all along that JuJu was going to go somewhere else. I'm sure he was not happy with his role in Pittsburgh this season, kind of running the same route tree as last year, which was not going to help out his market value. So we'll see. I think it's possible he comes back because I think he does like Pittsburgh and would like to stay here in an ideal world. But I could see him definitely going somewhere else.
What's his max value? And this is way, way, way early type situation here. But is it at least what it was this year? Or is it less than that?
Max. I think it's less. I mean, how could you argue that his value doesn't go decrease in a season where he catches 20 passes in 5 games and doesn't have a touchdown? And the only thing you could argue is because the cap goes up, there's just more money for teams to spend. But I feel like he'll have to take a 1-year deal for $6 million in the offseason. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of my sense.
Yeah, you could be right there, and obviously not anything more than 10. You wouldn't think right now at this stage, and a lot of teams might be pushing to give him a multi-year deal to get him at that rate, especially and try to help the cap situation, because a 1-year deal at that amount might still be hard for a lot of teams to swallow. On top of it, unless they did a voidable year situation. We'll see if the voidable year type stuff is just a 1-year wonder thing, or if that's going to be here to stay, at least until a lot of that new TV revenue kicks in. So it's a fair question. Look, I hope they get him back. I mean, they're really a hard-nosed guy, and if you used him the way he was used the first couple of years, if you had that premier X guy opposite him, and in other words, if he doesn't have to be a true number one guy, if he could be your go-to third down guy, if he could be your slot guy that you run a lot of those deeper down the field plays to, I think he still has a lot of catches left in him at the NFL level. It's just whether or not the Steelers are ready to move on from that or not, or whether or not JuJu's ready to move on from Pittsburgh as well.
Sure, but for the here and now, as you've said, and as Mike Tomlin pointed out, I think multiple times on Tuesday, it's going to take more than one guy to replace that role. And obviously, James Washington will step into the lineup as that number 3 receiver overall. We probably would expect Chase Claypool to play more in the slot. Maybe this team runs some more 12 personnel. So it'll be a lot of guys trying to assume that role, because JuJu had become that really strong, reliable guy on third down to run the choice route, the option route, and throw over the middle, let him make that tough catch in traffic. And so that's a skill set this team doesn't really have, identical to in terms of the receiver position behind him. Claypool kind of similar, but not quite as trusted and sure-handed. And they're going to have to figure out a way in those key, as Tomlin likes to say, those weighty moments. Who are they going to rely upon? Who's going to be emerge as that go-to guy? Or will it be multiple guys stepping up? So that to me is the biggest loss in those big moments, that 3rd and 3 slant. Who's going to make those plays? Because in the past it had been JuJu.
Yeah, and obviously, Mike Tomlin talked about this yesterday. We'll get into more of what he had to say. You know, what is a guy like losing JuJu Smith-Schuster and his role in the offense? Is this one that this team can get past?
Yeah, I think they can because JuJu had basically been the number 3 receiver on this team. It was Claypool and Deontay dominating the targets. So I don't want to say that, you can't replace JuJu's overall production, but those big moments that those catches get magnified. A slant for 3 yards on 1st and 10 versus a slant for 3 yards on 3rd and 2 are big differences in the game. And so again, those particular specific moments will be, I think, the toughest part to replace JuJu's, along with some of the run blocking. They were doing a bunch of insert blocks last week. So, can you find a guy that can replicate that? That'll be a challenge. But can they survive this? I mean, sure, I think they can. But I think, again, in those third down magnified moments is where you're going to really feel, not having 19 out there.
And by insert blocks, are you referencing how they basically used Cody White in a lot of those situations?
Yeah, that block, that lead block between the tight end and tackle, JuJu was doing it to start, and I think when he went out, Cody White was doing it some as well. I think they popped that big 20-yarder, I believe you had mentioned, on that insert block from Cody White. So that's not a staple of this offense, but just run blocking in general, cracking safety. You're going to face Jamal Adams this weekend. That's a tough guy that you want some big physical receivers to try to deal with in the run game. So some of that pin and pull and perimeter run stuff that they've been doing relies on receivers throwing a good crackback block. So. Some of that stuff, obviously, JuJu could do very well.
And I think they referenced that mostly like a 23 kind of duo, and they ran that play quite a bit in that game against the Broncos. And I think overall with success, I thought Cody going back and seeing the all-22 tape, very willing blocker. And I thought he kind of represented himself well, especially on several of those insert blocks as well too. And it was great to kind of see that those multiple duos being used and get that push up front there. And I, obviously we have seen that kind of play run before, but they did lean on it. In fact, I think the first offensive play might have been that particular play there. And we saw them use it, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times against the Broncos. And overall, I had a feeling that went well. But I mean, obviously JuJu, so good after the catch. We've said that so much last couple of years on top of it, and unfortunately for Cody, targeted I think a couple of times in that game against the Broncos. Ben severely underthrew him on one of those, but even so, I think Cody's got to make that catch. It was catchable football, and you're just not going to get the same player for obvious reasons in Cody White that you had in JuJu Smith-Schuster there. So I think this team can get past his loss, but it's going to have to be, and Mike Tomlin said it in so many words yesterday, just going to take multiple people to kind of assume some of the stuff that JuJu does or did in that offense.
Yeah, it could be, and I'm just kind of spitballing here. It could be, Chase Claypool replacing some of the pass game vertical stuff that JuJu is capable of running. It could be Cody White replacing some of the run blocking element. It could be Ray McLeod replacing some of the gadgety, jet type stuff they were doing with JuJu last week. It could be newly signed Anthony Miller having some sort of role in this offense at some point later in the season. So whenever we talk about multiple people replacing JuJu, that's the kind of stuff we're referencing, that I think his skill set was so unique that, it's hard for one guy to step up in that role 1-to-1. It may be 3-to-1 where 3 guys are kind of all putting their hand in the pile to replace what JuJu could do for this offense.
Absolutely. Big loss. I think if they're able to run the football, and that's always been the key to this thing right from the get-go, as we have said, I think they can get past this loss of JuJu, but obviously they can't if they can't run the football, especially the way they did against Denver.
Right. And just the last thought on JuJu, I know that he's a kind of polarizing player, even among Steelers Nation, but also in the national media. But that's a tough dude. And that's a dude that, to me, has given it his all for this team. He's played through a lot of injuries and probably played hurt for 2.5 seasons now. And the dude just goes out there and I think gave it his all and was a tough physical guy. And yeah, I know he was quirky, and the celebrations in TikTok not everyone loved, but man, on the football field, he was as old school comes. And so, he was banking on having a good season and cashing in next season. That's going to obviously change that plan and opportunity. But you just kind of feel for the guy because he's a young guy that's been through quite a bit, and I've got a lot of respect for kind of the toughness and physical, nature in which he plays with.
I just think he's a good kid all in all. Look, yeah, social media and all like that, I know that turns a lot of people off, but I mean, to the core, I think JuJu is a good human, and I think fans of the team should be rooting that this team gets him back at least one more season, if at all possible.
Yeah. I know we're going to bounce around quite a bit here with roster moves and injury reports and all that, but just based off of the JuJu conversation, I want to talk about some of the roster moves this team has made to start replacing him or getting depth at their wide receiver position. Yesterday, the team signed 2 players to the practice squad, one of those being the big name here, wide receiver Anthony Miller, former pretty high draft pick of the Chicago Bears, got traded to Houston for this 2021 season, then got released about a couple games into the year, now coming to Pittsburgh. And you mentioned this actually, Dave, on Monday, so kudos to you, former Memphis product. So that Memphis connection still hanging on for Miller and for Pittsburgh. So on the practice squad right now, maybe at some point, probably after the bye week, he could get promoted to 53, depending on how things look. But Anthony Miller, I think, a quality veteran, slot option to try to replace JuJu.
Boy, when you draw him up, what Kevin Colbert looks for in kind of cast-off free agents, if you will, Anthony Miller fits in that. I think someone asked, is this guy a blazer they can use on the outside and all? And the question, the short answer to that question would be no. But this is a guy that you go back and you remember his measurables coming out, and I don't think he worked out at a combine. I think he's a pro day guy. I think he kind of stood on his numbers and all, but when you put all of his numbers into the machine, especially the new, we talk P-Spark because that's the way we've done for years, but I guess it's now RAS. I don't know what's the catchy what's the catchy term. I'll forever use Sparky because it sounds so much better. I think people understand it. But when you look at his RAS score, relative athletic score coming out of Memphis, you go back and look at those numbers. Not a blazer, but I think like a low 4.5 guy. Good cutting ability, a guy that perfect fit, and has played the slot, I think, quite a bit in the NFL, especially with the Bears there the first little bit. The big question, I think, and a guy with reasonable hands, a guy that's good, I think, after the football in his hands, getting a little bit of yak. I guess the big question, and I've thought about this, Alex, and I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you know. Maybe it's the only thing I can come up with. Maybe it's attitude related. But why is this guy, to have the kind of measurables and be as sparky as he has, to have the decent production that he's had at the NFL level already? Why can't this guy find a home, and why is he already on a practice squad as a former second-round draft pick in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you. You can say that about any veteran guy looking for work right now or on a practice squad somewhere. I know he had success in Chicago. I know the quarterback situation there kind of made it difficult, so it never seemed like it was a great fit there. And I don't know what happened in Houston to lead to his release, other than it just being Houston and just kind of the rudderless ship that the Texans seem to be right now. But yeah, I don't have a great answer to that. But as Mike Tomlin likes to say, they don't care about how you got here, just that you're here, and we'll see if he gets some action at some point.
Yeah, what does he have? Something like almost 1,600 receiving yards already, 12 touchdowns, 27 years of age. I guess just turned 27 a few days ago. The Steelers had to know a lot about him. Randy Fichtner went to that and usually went to all the Memphis Pro Days, but I know he went to that one specifically there. And the only thing I can come down to is maybe this guy isn't great with the playbook and all, and maybe picking things up, or maybe he has some sort of a attitude issue of some sort. So this is obviously going to be his last or next to last chance at the NFL level, so he better not mess this one up. I don't think there's enough time, barring injury, this week to get him up to the to the active roster by the time they play the Seahawks on Sunday. But with the bye week coming up here, if this guy really gets after it here, I think he could potentially be on or participate in some form or fashion in the team's first game after the bye, which is
I don't know who that's against, but I assume
is that the Bears?
Is it the Bears game? I hadn't even thought that far ahead, to be honest with you.
All right, so I think that might be the plan with him, but I just don't have a good answer why he hasn't. I mean, there are issues in his tape, as they all are, but overall with his ability to play in the slot and all, I don't have a good answer why he has bounced around like he has to date.
Yeah, I do not either. Looks like the Browns game is after
the Browns.
The Bears
Okay,
is the week after that, so week 9 is Chicago. So
all right.
week 8's Cleveland.
That'd be a heck of a time for him to make the debut, right? Against the Bears.
Yeah, or the Browns, because they're going to need to beat the Browns. That'll be one of the games of the week, I'm sure. But yeah, a good signing overall. By the way, the team also signed another player in addition to Anthony Miller. They signed defensive lineman Isaiah Mack to the practice squad and released nose tackle Eli Anku, who they signed a week or two ago. Mack's a squatty nose tackle, listed I think 6'1", 299. So just kind of a 1-to-1 swap there.
Right. The other kid that they signed didn't last very long at all. Wonder what happened there. But I believe they still have one open practice squad spot. Do they not?
Is that one from the Cody White roster move that they never filled? I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, because basically, you just signed the 2. You had Cody White come up, and did you get to the Mark Gilbert getting poached? And
no, I haven't yet.
All right, go ahead and fill the people in on the rest of that.
Yeah, one other transaction, the Steelers losing cornerback Mark Gilbert to the Detroit Lions. The Lions have signed Gilbert off the Steelers practice squad. So Gilbert, a rookie undrafted free agent out of Duke, long, lanky corner who dealt with some hip and I think maybe knee issues at Duke. That's kind of really, hindered his college career, but had a decent camp in Pittsburgh, showed some length, showed some ball skills, was on the practice squad, and now in Detroit. So that'll open up another practice squad spot for Pittsburgh.
All right, so it makes you wonder. I don't know if Shakira Brown's going to be that guy, but he had kind of a tweet that had everybody speculating that maybe he was coming back to Pittsburgh. They're probably going to need a corner, right? You would think.
Yeah. Brown's tweet was, "I'm back," and so I don't know what that referenced. And obviously, there's been no signing or announcement yet. Nothing that came through yesterday. So we'll see what happens today. But yeah, I'm sure they'll probably have to add a corner at some point.
All right. What's your overall thoughts on Anthony Miller? Just from what you know.
Yeah, just kind of wait and see. It's the no risk flyer, a veteran guy who can play in the slot, who's had some production, so you can't be mad about that in terms of a practice squad guy. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. They're not counting on him solely. He doesn't have to play right away, and so it's a no risk kind of flyer on a guy who's got a pretty decent NFL resume. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, and you also have a guy in Steven Sims that can, give you some snaps in the slot as well. Obviously not as polished or experienced or his pedigree as a guy like Miller there. And not surprisingly, I guess, coming off of the JuJu injury and probably the uncertainty still with James Washington coming back from that groin injury there. The Steelers protected two of the four players that they protected from the practice squad in Week 6 are indeed wide receivers in Steven Sims and newcomer Anthony Miller. The other two are Taco Charlton and Carl Joseph, and that's probably not surprising there.
Yeah, not at all. Last bit of housekeeping here. Steelers, if they were hoping to get Rashard Coward back, that will not happen. He is now signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so Coward, who'd been dealing with an ankle injury, had not appeared in a game this year for Pittsburgh. Had been inactive, I think, for every single game so far this season until getting released to make room for, I believe it was Cody White. He's now in Jacksonville. So I left a nice message on Twitter. Coward did, thanking Tomlin and Coach Clem and Coach Morgan, the offensive line coaches, for helping him. And I think his actual words were thanking Tomlin for rediscovering his love of football. But he'll be doing that love of football in Jacksonville now.
Yeah, probably not a shocker overall. I mean, you hate to lose depth and guys that have been with you that long, but this was a converted guy overall that still, probably not going to be obviously a long time or premier starter, even if he does start. I mean, Jacksonville's gone through some injuries there. They needed some depth there. So you hate to see it. You kind of, maybe rooting for those guys to maybe circle back in some capacity. But overall, I don't think it's a huge loss.
No, I don't think so either. All right, so let's talk about what Mike Tomlin had to say at his press conference on Tuesday, starting with the injury report here, Dave, and just an update here on Devin Bush leaving the light on for him. He got injured midway through the Denver Broncos game with that groin injury. Tomlin didn't know if it was a re-aggravation or not. It sounds like it is, but his status up in the air for Sunday night against Seattle. Did have some more positive news for Cam Sutton. James Washington and Carlos Davis said those guys are, quote, in position to be under strong consideration for play, which Tomlin speak is a pretty good thing overall. And so those guys missing last week with Sutton Washington with the groin club, and Carlos Davis has been out several weeks with a knee injury. So looking hopeful and optimistic like those guys will return on Sunday, and still said that Banner and McFarland are kind of working their way back and still within that 21-day window, as Tomlin said.
Yeah, what's your obviously good news with those three that are injured. They could certainly use Sutton back on this field, and James Washington now really need him back with JuJu going down there. Carlos Davis, less of really a concern, although it would be back good to get him back taking some snaps depth wise there. But within all that. Zach Banner. What's your gut feeling telling you for Zach Banner by the weekend, and really Anthony McFarland for that matter as well too, because this will be his second week, and we're waiting to still find out today's Wednesday if the team's going to allow Stephon Tuitt to resume practicing this week. Even if Stephon Tuitt does get back on the practice field as a designated to return player starting today, it's hard to imagine him being ready to play. But there was, of course, the picture last week of Stephon Tuitt, really first, really good shot of him, I think, on a practice field. Did have a knee brace, I think, on that right knee of his there, but I think we can discount the fact that Stephon Tuitt is going to play this week. But what's your gut feeling tell you about maybe Zach Banner and Anthony McFarland this week?
Yeah, I don't really have a good gut feeling. I thought Banner would get kind of the call up last weekend, and that obviously didn't happen. So, I mean, it sounds like he's in position to play and he's ready to play. Tomlin, I believe, was asked about that and just said, he prefers to have the options right now of having more offensive linemen than not enough offensive linemen to choose from. So, I really couldn't tell you. You kind of think that he will get activated. Will he start? I guess it might be a separate question at this point. And then with McFarland, I really have no idea. I mean, it's 50-50 to me, to be honest with you. I don't even know what the injury was in the first place. So we're just working off of such limited information on Ant Mac that I could not tell you.
They will have potentially a spot to deal with them. Right now, they only have what? How many offensive linemen do they have? 8 on the 53, right?
Yep.
All right, and they'll obviously have to dress that many. On Sunday night against the Seahawks there. But you do have whatever you're going to do with JuJu, and they usually wait until the surgery, I think, happens. So sometime after the day, after they get in there and see what's going on, then by the weekend is probably when you will see the move with JuJu. It would make sense to put Banner back on the 53 at this point, even if he doesn't dress, because who knows if someone gets off the bus and twists their ankle? You know what I'm saying? You can obviously make the decision on game night as to who's going to be active or not. So I would lean toward Banner being back on the 53 by late Saturday night.
Okay, what about McFarland? Any idea there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they do, it would be a 1-for-1 swap with either Ballage or Benny Snell. They probably want him running around a couple of weeks. So I would guess that this won't be the week for Anthony McFarland.
Okay, I'm with you. And also, not that the backup running back will play much, not that Ballage has done a particularly good job, but Tomlin really emphasized pass pro this week for the running backs, and that is not McFarland's wheelhouse. So it might be the inopportune week to call him up to ask him to do that kind of stuff, potentially if there was an injury or whatever the case is.
And if those other two do one thing better, it's pass protection better than
although Ballage has been really bad with his check releases, but I'll take him in pass pro over McFarland, obviously.
And Najee hasn't been great either in pass pro. He could have ate up a little bit more grass on that on that play the other day that Roethlisberger ended up hitting his hand on, I think, on Najee's helmet on the follow through there. I was looking back at that one yesterday there and thought, man, Najee's got to do a better job of eating up that short area of grass to meet the blocker, a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage so Ben doesn't have to follow through like that and hit his head. I thought he broke his thumb, really. Live on TV when that happened, and Ben started shaking that hand, I thought, oh, no, that not let's not make this the way that he has to go out there.
Yeah, and so they'll be meeting Jamal Adams this week, one of the best blitzing defensive backs, the best blitzing defensive back in football. I think pretty clear cut at this point. So getting into what Tomlin had to say, I mean, that was a lot of the bulk of it. Obviously, did anything Tomlin say Tuesday kind of really stick out to you one way or another, Dave?
I mean, look, he was asked so many different ways about JuJu and how the team goes about replacing him, and I think we've kind of addressed that pretty good earlier in the show there. I was asked about Zach Banner. What else was he asked about? Roethlisberger. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that was there anything else that stood out to you, what he said?
No, not in particular. Just saying multiple people to replace JuJu and the opportunity for James Washington. Still did not confirm or deny the James Washington trade request, which feels like 6 years ago, not like 2 months ago. Yeah, that was about it. Kind of downplayed analytics when it comes to why teams are being more aggressive on fourth down. So shocker, the Steelers not buying into analytics too much. That's
how'd you like him framing that around the mobility of the quarterback?
I mean, it's probably some kernel of truth to it. I wrote the article on that. I mean, the teams that have the fewest fourth down attempts are the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Patriots. So 3 of those 4 teams had mobile quarterbacks in Mahomes, Wilson before the injury, and Kyler Murray. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe there's some degree of truth to it because you have more options. If it's 4th and 1, you can do more boots and rollouts with a mobile quarterback. But I think it's more analytics that Tomlin's kind of trying to downplay, and I don't think that's the right answer there.
He sure has talked about mobility in quarterbacks as of late, though. Is there anything to read into that?
Not really. I mean, we all know he doesn't have to say that Ben's immobile for us to realize that. I think everyone's aware that Ben can't move much at all.
All right. What did you think about his thoughts about soft tissue injuries and hydration with Najee Harris?
Yeah, I mean, he just said that they have to do maybe a better job there of making sure those guys are ready. His answer of his concern about the soft tissue injuries of not at this juncture was interesting. What is that at this juncture? I mean, what juncture do they have to get to? Because it feels like they're at half the team has had a groin injury so far. But I don't know. I don't know what their process is with Guy and Marcel Pastor. So that's all above my pay grade.
And Najee and look, they really could have used him late in that game. Let's not kid ourselves here. Luckily, they got by without him. And I guess Najee's had a little bit of an issue in the past with that, correct?
Yeah, he said dating back to his days at Alabama, he dealt with cramping issues because he wasn't used to the humidity out in California. There really wasn't humidity out west. And so down south and up here in the Northeast, you get some more of those humid conditions. And so his body's trying to deal with that. And that's why he cramped up.
All right, you have to have a long talk with him this week, right?
About just hydration and getting your body ready and stuff
like
that?
That you can't have that happen. You got to have whoever the hydration boy or girl is on the sideline too. They got to keep that bottle in front of him at all times and force him to stay hydrated there. So part of becoming a pro and dealing with the rigors and all like that. So hopefully we're not talking about that aspect of it. Again, look, I understand sometimes these guys just get into some of these games too and exertion or whatnot. I mean, you see a whole bunch of guys cramp up in games sometimes. But let's hope late in games we're not talking about that when especially in ones where they need him moving forward.
For sure. So anything else there? Did I miss anything from the 100 or so transaction and roster moves to talk about?
No, I think you did good there. And the thing about groins, and look, I understand you had this many groin injuries. The narrative becomes what's going on. What's going on? Can this be avoided? Is somebody not doing their job right? Do they need to look at the team physician? Why is this happening? Blah blah blah. I get all of that, but within all that, I don't have a great answer. We're going to have – that's why we want to get Dr. Mel back on again, hopefully on Friday, to talk about why this might be happening, if it's something that the Steelers could do better. Is this just bad luck? I don't know. What's your initial thoughts on it?
I mean, I wish I had more knowledge about this area. I don't know if it is just truly bad luck or if there's something in the process in terms of their, stretch line or hydration. I mean, it's hard to be critical of those guys because I don't know what their plan is. And, Garrett Guimont and Marcel Pastore have been around for
Forever.
years and years and years, with this team. So it's not like they're brand new. They don't know what's going on. I don't want to accuse them of that. So I don't know. I wish I could give you a good answer, or, I don't have the background in that kind of stuff. So that just, I tend to chalk it up to, I guess, maybe just more bad luck, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning for sure, and I understand why, people from the outside just see, growing, then they wonder what the heck's going on, if there's anything the team could do better here. So that's what we really, I think, mostly want to talk to Dr. Mel about, hopefully on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. So
if you get your groin questions in now, it's out of my department of speculating about groins. It's gone way past me speculating about groins now. So if you have a groin question you would like answered, make sure to get it over to us.
For sure. And hopefully we'll have Dr. Mel on Friday to answer some of those questions. So, all right, Dave, I think that kind of recaps Tomlin's presser and the Steelers transactions pretty well. Let's kind of talk about here the Steelers game against Denver, watching the All-22. I know both of us have gone through this game already. Anything stick out to you? Anything that surprised you, or anything that you saw going back through the game that you didn't observe, watching it live?
I really got the sense that this offensive line collectively across the board really showed a next level of kind of aggressiveness, bulliness, if you will. I could sense more cohesion with this unit as well too. I thought they did a good job on a lot of these combo blocks. I thought specifically, Chukwuma Okorafor, that guy's taken a lot of heat, so far this season. But I thought he really played, not great, not going to the Pro Bowl, but I thought he represented himself really, really well. Just look at what Von Miller didn't do in this game. That's almost enough, and especially when you look at the throw to, or the snap to throw time for Ben Roethlisberger and how that was slightly higher this time around. And Ben Roethlisberger only hit one or two times in this game. On top of it, I thought Trey Turner and Okorafor worked really well together, and I thought Turner and Kendrick Green worked really well together. The other side, to me, I thought Dan Moore played well. Kevin Dotson could have had a better game, I think, and I think overall Kendrick Green could have had a better game. He's got to stay off the ground, man. Period. Mm-hmm. And it's a repeating theme that we've had for him from his college tape there, but you can't not notice Kendrick Green on the ground quite a bit, and that's concerning. And as is the fact that sometimes off the snap, man, he just gets stood straight up. And you would think a guy with his stature and all that, he'd be low man win kind of things. Well, but overall, I like the play on the offensive line. I like those insert runs. It felt like there was more running lanes for Najee Harris in this one as well too. And it really felt like about midway through that game that they were imposing their will on the Broncos front, and it really felt like they were the ones, the group, getting the push there, and that's really something that we have not seen collectively this season. So as a unit, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was really showed that physicality, really showed kind of that bully nature, if you will. And I thought more than anything, Turner and Okorafor really played well together on that side.
Yeah, I think from a run blocking standpoint, they just did well from an assignment standpoint. There weren't guys running free. The combo blocks were clean. Guys were overtaken and climbing, I think, well overall. And then B, from a physical standpoint, guys were just running their feet. There weren't stalemates. They weren't getting the block, but then just kind of locking up and their feet would go dead. They were driving and running through contact. Kevin Dotson in particular and Dan Moore on the left side, I thought both did a really good job in that regard. That's one of the better run blocking of the day came from those two guys, which was great to see. I thought Dotson struggled more in pass pro than he did run blocking. And then in terms of pass pro, they definitely obviously had a plan to take away Von Miller. I thought Chooks did a really good job overall, but they were consistently sliding protection to that side. Trey Turner and Kendrick Green sliding to the right, so Green would take the D tackle, and Turner, if he was uncovered, would help out with a core for us, so that they had a good plan overall of kind of manning up on the backside on the left side with Moore and Dots, and then zoning it and sliding the protection to the right with Green, Turner, and a core for. And yeah, I thought overall really kept Miller at bay in that game.
Absolutely, and the stats obviously bear it out and all, but I felt the sense that this is just a more physical offensive line all the way around, top to bottom, all five of them, and on top of it, just more sound from an assignment standpoint, and you just could feel more cohesion, I think, with that unit.
Yeah, and just to speak to that, to the overall offense, it really felt like, and this is a benefit of playing with a lead and having a run game going and all those kind of fun things, but it felt like this was really the first game that felt like a Matt Canada offense game. You had, unbalanced looks with Dan Moore on the right side. They did that, I believe. Huge hole
over there, one of them.
Was a huge play. They got to run some of their jet stuff and kind of work stuff off of that. They were running a 3-by-1 package with a nub on the backside, so a tight end on the backside and 3 receivers to the right. That's something that we haven't seen much of this season, I don't believe. When they ran that, I don't know, half a dozen times, if not more, all pass plays against Denver. So it kind of felt like you got that rhythm and flow of the offense, obviously, because you were better on first down, you had a lead, and things this team has not benefited from this season. But it really felt like Canada got to have his script and his schedule and his plan and stick with it from start to finish. And so you kind of felt like you saw some of those more Canada hallmarks, and they worked pretty well.
Right, and this isn't new. It's just that they finally have had a little bit of rhythm here, and out of the chute was the most impressive thing, because their first drive was 6 plays, their second drive was 10 plays, and their third drive was 9 plays. When's the last time that this team has run 25 plays on offense in their first 3 possessions of the football? That's a good stat probably to figure out, right? And had not been sacked, fumbled on one of them, we're probably talking about probably 30 plays or close to there of it in the first 3 drives there. So when you're early in the games, when you have a lead and you're obviously able to start running the football early, I think it opens up more things. I think people lose sight of the fact that the way this team had played up until this point, they weren't the dominant, they weren't the better of the two teams out of the chute. And then obviously when you get to halftime, there's a sense of urgency there, and you have to get away from the things. That's why I wasn't overly concerned about the motion rates being down, or compared to the rest of the league, because they just hadn't possessed the football. And by the, when they are trying to get in those, a lot of that stuff goes out the window. Now, should nearly all of it go out the window? Maybe Canada can be accused of jumping ship a little bit too much overall on that. But you did see elements of things that we would have expected to have seen earlier in the season, just from the sheer fact that they had some offensive rhythm and they had some success in their earlier game drives, correct?
No, correct. I'm curious. I'm trying to pull it up here on the fly from Tom Meats charting. What was the motion rate in this game? Was it higher? I imagine it was, but I don't know that for a fact.
And once again, when it comes to things like this, Tom charts it a lot of different, or charts it several ways. An M for moving at the snap, and then also for a player that came to a that had pre-snap motion but came to a settling point at the snap of the football. So what does guys like Seth Walder and all track? Are they tracking the actual moving at the football?
Well, I think they have both. I think Walter has had stats for both, but just overall motion, any kind of motion, moving at the snap or not, it looks like it's around 50% in this game. Just a quick notes I'm looking at here from Tom.
And how many of those have the M?
Yeah, that might be harder for me to do here on the fly. I can try to do it here quickly, but let's see, 13 it looks like. So what is the percentage on that? And this may be not counting.
It's rough. We won't hold it. We won't hold it. Hold you to it.
19.4% is the number I'm getting roughly in this game.
And how does that kind of relate, do you think?
I'll have to look. I'm not sure where that stacks up, but I'm guessing it's a little bit higher. But just something for us to investigate.
It was more visible for sure, just on a general observation, things that you kind of look for when you go through the all 22 tape. I didn't sit there and count them. I caught myself trying to count times Kendrick Green was on the ground, and I stopped myself because I know a lot.
Are you seeing that more in the run game in pass pro? I mean, what is the reason for that? Is he overextending? Is it an issue of strength and getting bull rushed? What's the particular on that?
Yeah, and once again, I started to chart. I started to go through and chart all this. I said, nobody's going to want me continue to pick on poor Kendrick Green and all. It feels like it's run game related stuff and just aggressiveness with him. And really the stuff that we've talked about, since he was drafted with him. Just I think he's got the balance aspect of it. I just think he's just trying to do too much, and he's ended up on the ground. And he's not the biggest guy on the football field, on the offensive line on top of it, and obviously in the center of all that mess. I suppose it's probably a little bit easier to lose your feet there, but it's noticeable enough that I cannot not look away. When I see him on the ground.
Yeah, he did get earholed on one play on a little crash by the defensive tackle and just totally wrecked Kendrick Green. So you definitely feel that kind of lack of size and strength to hold up in some of those, physical moments.
Now he did a lot of good in this game. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and the penalty on him of ineligible downfield. I mean, how many times can you call that around the NFL every week?
Yeah, and that's not on him. He's just blocking. He doesn't know what's going on around him. So that's a quarterback thing, a coverage thing, if anything else. And
I thought that was kind of a bogus kind of call on him anyway there. I mean, the letter of law, I understand it and all like that, but the play wasn't even his direction there, and Ben really got the ball out quick overall anyway there. So I kind of thought that was ticky-tack, if you will, there. And look, I mean,
and how about his tackle he had on the forced fumble? He might save a touchdown there, right? I mean, Ballage is in the area, but who knows if he gets him down? So that was a good tackle.
And look, you don't have to worry about him. You don't have to tell this guy to finish plays either. Even on that play early there where he gave up the interior pressure there, it's like that guy owed him money afterwards. He ended up getting a pancake, I think, on that overall. But long after the fact, and long after he gave up the initial pressure there, and even on the Najee touchdown leap there, Freiermuth said something to somebody, I guess, and got poked back. Well, Kendrick Green was the first one coming to the defense there. So this guy's 100% team player, badass, if you will, does have the demeanor, will finish. It's just little technical aspects that that come with playing that position too. And it's going to take time for him to learn a little bit more the nuances of it when it comes to that. Just tired of seeing him on the ground though.
Yeah, for sure. You did a good breakdown of the Claypool touchdown, of Ben looking off or holding the safety and then come back to Claypool. So that was just a great route, a great throw, and a great play overall.
Yeah, it was. And our own Tyler Wise made that part of the kind of the turning point segment of his, which once again has absolutely become or is a must read. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you get by SteelersDepot.com and read his turning point article there. Just another reason why I think Claypool is going to be okay in the slot there, if that's the way they choose to go there. Now, they might mix and match and stuff like that, but big-bodied guy, a guy that can do a good job of stemming or nodding curving those routes to the outside to kind of, he gets the aspect of what they're trying to do offensively and certain route combinations on top of it. And a big part of that, too, I thought was his ability to kind of stem that thing to the outside to get those safeties to widen maybe just a little bit more there. And I thought Ben just did a good job of just really looking at the other safety. I don't think it was really that demonstrative other than just to look at him and hold him. And then Ben, I mean, that was a seed that he put right in there where only his guy was going to catch the football, and Claypool obviously did for the touchdown there. The only thing that I'd like to really see more about out of Claypool, Alex, and you know, I've gone on about this since they drafted him, is just if you're going to use him the way that you're using him with kind of those back shoulder kind of contested jump balls over to the side of the field, he's got to start coming down with some of them. And you know, you kind of washed that early play in the game down the left side there. Who was the kid?
Surtain.
Yeah, Surtain in coverage there. You kind of wash that off at maybe a good play by Surtain and all like that. But that ball actually went right through Claypool's hands and hit him right in the coconut. You know. Mm-hmm. And there were some people that say, okay, well, even if Claypool had caught that, he's probably not coming down in bounds. I think that's BS when you look at the all 22 on that. Pro Football Focus gave Claypool a drop, and I didn't want to be too critical of that until I actually went back and watched the tape on that. He's got to start making some of those contested catches, Alex, because that's you know, when I did the original contextualization of Chase Claypool after I think it was when Daniel was working for us, and I think that was one of the guys that the Steelers right out of the chute at the Senior Bowl was kind of linked to, and that was one of the first. It was the first guy that I did a target contextualization on. One of the highlights with Chase Claypool was down the field, back to the goal line contested catches for him. And I don't think we're seeing enough of those out now. Yeah, could the ball be placed in better position on some of these especially this year, in the end zone? Yeah. Does it take some body contortion, body control to come down with some of these? Yes. But we have to, I think, start seeing either him draw pass interference penalties with these or start coming down with some of these footballs on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, and I think we all understand he's not going to get to win every single one of those chances, but you would like to see more consistency with it. I think overall his game just needs some refinement and consistency. I think obviously the talent's immense and he can make some really great plays, but can he do that on, I think, a more consistent basis, both in the long game and the short passing game will be, I think, the biggest keys with him, especially now that JuJu's out.
I'm going to say this because I've watched a lot of tape on this kid. I think it's going to be really beneficial for him to play more in the slot. I really do.
And what's the biggest way he'll benefit? I don't disagree, but where do you come in on that?
I just think the ability to work more middle of the field stuff like we saw, especially on that touchdown, I think it opens up the ability. I think he has a better chance to gain separation deeper down the field on running some of those slot fades. And I also think they're not using him enough on some of these underneath crossing routes. These short digs, if you will. If you go back and look at his Notre Dame tape, you know, in the little bit that he did work out of slot situations, they used. Now, here's the bad thing. Most of his drops came within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, okay, on some of these underneath digs. But there is a huge mismatch potential, I think, and look, we saw one of them. There were actually two of them. They did not take advantage of one of them on the all 22 there, where I don't think anybody guarded him on kind of a quick, post slant, if you will, there. But we saw on one situation in that game against the Broncos there, Broncos out there in that cover two situation, a two-man situation where the player did not. Why didn't that player follow him across the? I guess you would have to change players there with Vaughn, but good on the Steelers to get the situation where they had a pretty good feeling where they're going to get a two-man look, move Chase Claypool across the line of scrimmage, and Von Miller has to walk out on him. Okay, now are all these guys going to be Von Miller? I'm pretty passionate about this, as you can tell. Are you going to get all instances where you're going to get him on a guy like a Von Miller? No. But there are going to be instances where you get him either on an undersized corner in those situations, or a safety, or the opposition's probably most athletic linebacker. All those situations are situations that you would think Chase Claypool should be able to win in. And once again, going back to his tape at Notre Dame, and this, I don't know why I caught so much hell for this, last thought during the offseason when I thought JuJu might fly the coop. I really think that this guy has a potential to excel as a big slot in the Steelers offense. And that's why, I mean, look, it sucks to lose JuJu, but because his ability to play in there, in that big slot role, is one of the reasons I'm not overly concerned about this team losing JuJu, because I think Claypool can assume that role, and I think we're going to start talking more in these next several weeks about Chase Claypool flourishing in that big slot role more than we have as Chase Claypool, say, in a 11 personnel setting where he's playing the Z. I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's great. I agree with everything you said there. I think he can have an impact in all the ways you mentioned, but I'm really excited about him because I think they can open up the vertical pass game from the slot, because for whatever reason they view JuJu as kind of that underneath receiver, and they view Claypool currently as a vertical threat. And so I think they're going to work to use the middle of the field more vertically, because they'll have a vertical threat in the slot with Chase Claypool. You saw that on the touchdown alone. I mean, how many plays like that have they thrown, the first month of the season, middle of the field, a seam ball like that? Hardly any. And so it's great to see that from Claypool. So I think now that they kind of recognize the personnel that they have, they're going to tailor the offense and the route tree in the slot with Claypool a little differently and get him more vertical. So I think they're going to start taking more shots down the middle of the field when they get too high, middle of the field open, more than they really ever have before.
Look, like it or not, this guy's not going to be a premier Z receiver in the NFL.
I mean, I don't know. I think can that light come on, and can it become that really consistent player downfield? I think he still could be. He's still a second-year guy, obviously.
I didn't see it on his college tape of him being that premier guy. He's a guy you can use out there, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to put fear in a lot of other teams' outside cornerbacks. In let's say cover one situation. He will win occasionally on that. We have seen him look at Denver last year. We've seen situations where him get some separation on the outside this year, but he's never going to be that guy that stacks consistently on the outside. He's just not. And I've taken hell for that, but to me, he's not going to be that guy. Look, he could come out this week and get some of these Seattle defensive backs and maybe run away from one of them. But I just think on a week-to-week basis, he's not Martavis Bryant. He's not Mike Wallace. And I still contend that the best vertical deep threat this team has on the outside right now is Deontay Johnson. But you're still going to need that guy to be more of a backside X more than anything. So my thought coming out of this game and the loss of JuJu, with what I've seen on Claypool, I think we have the ability now to maybe talk more about. I think this is going to help Chase Claypool's career in Pittsburgh more than hurt it, because if they use him correctly, the way I think they can use him, some of these, we saw one of them on the touchdown, obviously, out of that slot position against Denver. If they start running more of these quick digs up underneath there with him, run him out of that slot fade. Go back to that touchdown against Cleveland, last year, right? That's didn't they run, or was it? It was Cleveland. I think a slot fade out of there for a touchdown, or close damn to it. And then the touchdown against the Eagles last year against the mismatch situation. If you scheme that guy more and make him more of your game plan, what you were doing with JuJu, I really think you can unlock some potential with this guy, and don't be surprised if he becomes a huge focal point in this offense, and we're talking about him more in a positive light in the coming weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that's really good insight, and I think this can be a good thing for Claypool, and you can still make this offense work and maybe open up some new stuff for this offense as well. Last note I have for the offense. So
real quick, what happens if this guy does really become that big slot guy, a premier big slot guy? And what does that do to the future value of JuJu then in this team?
Yeah, it may close that door, but I'll, in a way, consider that a good problem to have if Claypool really balls out in the slot and just becomes like this 6'4", 230, just complete mismatch inside.
Where am I wrong on any of this with Claypool?
No, I think you summed it up well. I don't have any disagreements there.
All right.
The last thing I'll note for this offense, I'll have a video on this tomorrow for Steelers Depot. Najee Harris, his vision I thought was excellent in this game. I kind of knocked it a little bit, and that's going to happen. Running backs aren't going to see the hole every single time during the first month of your rookie campaign, but his vision, ability to create and get beyond what was blocked, I thought was really good in this game, and almost equally as important to why this run game was successful on Sunday.
Look, rubber stamped that game, and let's see more of that. I mean, anytime he's touching the football, and he would have touched the football a lot more in that game had he not cramped up and all, and it would have been interesting to see how that game would have transpired had he been able to stay on the field in those situations there. And even as a pass catcher, you'd like to see some improvements, obviously, in that area. Has had a couple of drops on top of it, and him slipping and coming out of that route, and maybe that calf locking up is one of the reasons that one of those looked like a possible interception for Ben in that game there. But that's why they got this guy, is to run him, to put the football in his hands that many times, especially running the football. So, I don't have, other than some pass protection issues still with him, and maybe some minor route running stuff there with him, and the occasional, maybe want to kick that thing outside there. He is as advertised, and and once again, that the way this team's going to continue to win football games this year is by him having as many touches as he had against the Broncos, I think.
Another note from this game I didn't see on the All-22, obviously, but I meant to shout this out Monday, and I forgot. How about just the crowd noise of this game, the environment at Heinz Field? This place was rocking. They get to delay a game on the first snap of the game. I think the defense was feeding off that energy quite a bit early in that game, late in that game. I don't know if the attendance was super high in this one, but the energy felt like it was off the charts. So kudos to Steelers Nation for representing, as they always do, and I think really having an actual real impact on this game.
Yeah, that didn't stick out to me so much, but I tell you what did is, boy, how many chances did they get? And Tyler Wise did a great job of recapping this at his turning point there. You're not going to have situations where you have that many chances to put away the game, and they need to make sure they get it that first time there. They had a couple of chances on that drive, I think, to connect, and Ben didn't, or the receiver dropped it or what have you there. So, and then obviously the leverage field goal, the leveraging penalty really was a turning point in that game, like it or not. And they made them pay for it, which is good. That's what you're supposed to do. But in key moments, would like to see more consistency of not needing that second, third, fourth chance, if you will.
Right, yeah. You want to close that game and put it away, and not have to rely on interception with 11 seconds left to seal the deal on that one. Flipping over the defense side of the football, I just thought overall team run defense was good. There was the big long run by Williams, which was negative, obviously, but overall the pursuit, the chase, the gang tackle, I just thought everyone kind of did their job and overall did it well to slow down Gordon and Javonte Williams.
Yeah, other than the few times that you got busted, with Pierre, we talked about that on the show the other day. There, his highs were real high in that game. Unfortunately, his lows were real low, and it was almost one more low one in there too. If that passes a little bit, he almost got beat again for another one down there. That would have been interesting to see the impact of that had that pass connected there. Up front, Henry Mondeau seems to be a little bit more comfortable in that defense now. I think Wormley's played great throughout this thing. Really kind of one of the unsung heroes up front, if you will. Cam Hayward continues to be Cam Hayward. I think he did a great job on a video. I think that's going up. It's either up now or going up on the site today there. Just how great that guy's playing, batting stuff down, those kind of things there.
One of those is going to get picked. One of those bats is going to fall in the arms of a Steeler at some point.
Right. It'd be nice to have that this week for sure. Schobert, I thought, played a decent game overall in this one. Millette, I think, is is becoming that guy or the best available guy, I think, in the slot. I don't think he's foolproof by any stretch of the imagination. He's not Mike Hilton there. Is this the week that Watt and Highsmith really get back to form, I guess? Those guys are good at discarding blockers, and I think and doing good things with the run. Want to see him get back to maybe that early season kind of pressure situation.
Yeah, I thought Watt played a very Watt game Sunday. They just were chipping the heck out of him. I mean, how many snaps did Noah Fant not chip TJ Watt? I mean, had probably counted on one hand the number of those. And so he was getting a lot of attention, obviously, and deservedly so. I think he's played well against the run. The pass rush has been quieter, which is a little, I don't know if that groin's still bothering him or what, but I don't think he's playing terribly. And Melvin Ingram, I think, continues to play consistently. Good football, run and pass, and he's won with that spin move 5 weeks in a row. He's won with that spin move, and so it's one of the best in football.
Yeah, look, I don't think they're playing awful. I don't think they're back up to that level that we saw, first couple weeks there.
Right. Yeah, but I mean,
from a pressure standpoint,
Watt was just getting chipped and bumped and widened, with his alignment and stuff the whole game. So a tough game for him. And he was close a couple times. But yeah, I certainly would like to see some more pressure. They only had a couple of quarterback hits, and I think just the one sack, I believe, from Mondo, and the other one got called back after the Loudermilk brought him down. So, of course, you want to see more for sure. And you should. This will be a week to do it. The Seahawks offensive lines, we'll talk to Greg here in a second, it's not great. And so you should get pressure in this one.
Yeah, Joe Hayden's got to do a little bit. We got to have better games out of Joe Hayden on that other side, I think. Minka, like to see him make some of those tackles that he's missing closer to the line of scrimmage there. And then obviously James Pierre, he's got to do a better job of staying in phase on some of those deep balls, because teams are going to continue to go out after him when they see him out there on that side and limited to no safety help over the top.
Yeah, and the last thing, I didn't love the two corner routes they gave up, one on fourth down. And I think, as you pointed out, there was miscommunication. The one play between Schobert and Pierre, I'm guessing Pierre had deep third and he played flat when Schobert should have been in the flat, and they hit another corner route later in that game, I believe, as well. And so they were good throws and good catches. Hinton had a really good catch, I think, on the second one there, but you don't want to allow those plays.
Yeah, you can see at the tail end of that Joe Schobert get on Pierre on that one. Once again, the good thing that we talked about early in the season, and now twice with these wins is some of these younger players are learning and getting experience during wins. So that's ideal situation. But there comes a time with Pierre now. I mean, how many games, this will be his sixth game this season coming up here. Yeah, you got to start learning from your mistakes a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, and Terrell Edmonds, to his credit, I think has played well overall against the run as a tackler. I mean, it's not been anything radically different than past years. I think coverage has improved a little bit, but he's playing solid football.
What's your biggest concern about this defense heading into this game against the Seahawks?
I'll have to watch more Seahawks tape. I really haven't gotten into the tape yet too much but just overall for this defense right now, just some of the stuff in the secondary. Do they have enough speed? Are they going to be able to make enough plays? They're playing a lot more zone coverage, like I've said before, and I think it's kind of limiting, some of the ball hawking chances that they've had in the past, because they're not playing as tight coverage, not playing as much man coverage. So, just not allowing the big play, and, can they create big plays of their own, which have been the hallmarks of this defense for, the last two seasons is maybe not there this year. It isn't quite there this year.
Yeah, need to tighten up in the big play department, I think, overall. Look, I mean, how deadly would that have been had James Pierre not gotten Javonte Williams from behind?
Right. Yeah. And you're facing the Seahawks team that they're going to need big plays, and they can make big plays with Metcalf and Lockett, and so they're going to win this game by chunks, not by JuJu Smith orchestrating a bunch of 15-play drives. So you don't want to allow that this weekend.
Yeah, look, they've got obviously two of the best duo in Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You and I have been huge Lockett fans for a while. That guy can flip a game in a hurry, and we all have seen already what DJ Metcalf can do. And if Carson, if they had the duo of Carson and Collins together, which is kind of questionable whether or not they will, but those two guys can make plays out of the backfield as well too. So you just can't get chunked in this game. In fact, that might be one of my 5 keys, is some working around chunked, because that's going to be a key component, I think, to what obviously Seattle. Look, any team tries to hit their shot plays and all like that, but if the Steelers can stay away from the 50-yard touchdown down the sideline against a James Pierre or a home run, if you will. That's going to be obviously their best chance of hanging around in these games.
Definitely. And speaking of Seattle, good time to take a break here and talk to the Seahawks beat writer of the week. That man is Greg Bell, first time on the show. Really good interview. Great time talking with Greg, and he just has terrific insight. You can follow him on Twitter at GBellSeattle, Seahawks beat writer for the Tacoma News-Tribune. So, Dave, let's take a break here and talk with Greg.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and that means we have an opposing beat writer in who covers the team that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing here this week, Week 6 in the NFL. The Steelers will be hosting the Seattle Seahawks at Heinz Field Sunday night, nationally televised game, and we are pleased to be joined. We don't get too many first-time guests on this show these days, but we have one in a very veteran beat writer in Greg Bell. Greg covers the Seahawks for the News-Tribune out of Tacoma. Greg, in January 2019, was named the Washington State Sports Writer of the Year by the National Sports Media Association. He's been covering the NFL, I think, since 2002. A lot of people that have been around know that he once covered the Oakland Raiders for the Sacramento Bee. He is an Ohio native as well, too. He's got some Pittsburgh Steeler blood running around in that family. Began covering the Seahawks in their first Super Bowl season in 2005, and we know how that one went there. And in a prior life, he graduated from West Point, served as a technical intelligence officer in the U.S. Army. God bless you, Greg, for your service there. So we may evidently ask you to drop and give him 10. So we're going to try to get about 20 or 30 minutes of his time here with that long introduction. Greg, welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Well, good morning, guys. Thank you very much. I love how you say I'm very veteran. That's another way of saying I'm old. I appreciate that.
Well, I can say that because I'm old too. So I'm in my 50s. But yeah, thank you for your service, Greg, and we're absolutely pleased to have you on the podcast here. Before we get started here, make sure you follow Greg on Twitter this week at GBell Seattle. Very easy to remember there. Reach out to Greg and thank him for being on the show. So, Greg, a lot to get to here. Seahawks obviously coming to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. The dominating story, especially on the Seahawks side of the football, is that they're not going to have Russell Wilson, going to miss, I believe, his first NFL start ever with that finger injury that he suffered the other night. Going to have Geno Smith, a quarterback that a lot of our listeners know very well from his time in college at West Virginia there. I guess the first question, first and foremost, look, it's crushing for any NFL team to lose their starting quarterback, especially this time of the year, especially with the Seahawks and the record that they have 2-3 right now. Is this a death sentence for this team right now, Greg, especially when you look at that division that they're in? Can they overcome this with Geno Smith?
Well, Dave, it's a death sentence as long as he's out, but they're anticipating he's going to be back perhaps a month from now. The way Russell Wilson recovers, he had a sprained knee in 2016 that the doctor said he should miss 4 weeks, and he didn't miss a practice. He's infamous to the rest of the NFL and famous out here about how he seems indestructible. He will, though, on Sunday night miss his first game of his career. 165 consecutive starts, regular season and postseason will end, 10 years of starting. And history says no team, certainly not Seattle, but no team can survive this. I went back to 2015. They've been 19 times, including Ben Roethlisberger in 2019 with the Steelers. There have been 19 times a quarterback has been either had a season-ending injury or an injury during the season that cost at least 3 games. So a major injury, at least 3 games missed. Of those 19 times, 17 of those teams failed to make the playoffs. The winning percentage of games after those quarterbacks got those injuries, guys, 335, 59 wins, 117 losses. So in other words, 2/3 of the time teams lose when they lose their starting quarterback for more than 3 or more weeks. And that's what the Seahawks are looking at here. And you're right. The division is such. Arizona's the only undefeated team in the league. They're already 3 games up on Seattle, 5 games into the season. Seattle's yet to play Arizona. They got them twice later in the year. But they will not recover from this. The mitigation is how soon can Wilson get back. If he can get back, perhaps best case after the bye, which will be 3 games missed in 4 weeks, then you still have a chance to get in the playoffs. But this team will not get to the Super Bowl unless it wins a division because it won't have home playoff games. The only 3 times they've made the Super Bowl was as the NFC's top seed. Since they last went to the Super Bowl at the end of the 2014 season, they've bowed out of the division round or the wild card round every year, and missing the playoffs one of those years. 8 of the last 9 years they've been in the playoffs, but they haven't been in the Super Bowl in a half dozen years because they've been on the road in the playoffs. So that's a long way of saying they're in big trouble. And not to mention their defense is right now the worst ever in NFL history. It's on pace to pass the 2012 Saints for giving up the most yards. Teams are running on them. Teams are throwing on them. No pass rush at all. This could be a game that Ben Roethlisberger gets really well, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh is saying Roethlisberger's back. The way the defense for Seattle's playing.
Don't tease our listeners like that, Greg. All right. Listen, Geno Smith obviously hadn't started an NFL game. I think you got to go back to 2017 with the Giants, and
right.
I think he even only just started just one that season right. there. But when you watch what happened and all that transpired the other night, man, he drove the team down the field on that long drive there, had the touchdown pass, and look, I had a little deal going with the man at the time, so I was rooting for Geno to pull that off. Obviously had the unfortunate late interception there with I think the players slipping there out in the route. I guess all in all, my thoughts were that for a guy that's been around the league as long as Geno has been, as old as he is, been in obviously in the Seattle a couple years, didn't seem that bad. What obviously they lose the extending the play ability with a guy like Russell Wilson and just the overall command of the offense. But it's not like he's a newcomer either there. So what are your kind of expectations with Geno Smith?
Well, you're right. It was remarkable what he did. 98 yards off the bench. I mean, he wasn't just cold from 3 hours. He was cold for 3 years. He hadn't played at all because Russell Wilson was 99% of the snaps. A couple of those 3 seasons, Wilson took every snap, even in blowouts. So Smith was a non-factor once the preseason ended since 2017. They ended the 2017 season with the Giants. He comes right in and moves him right down the field, and if Tyler Lockett doesn't slip on an out route, trip over his own feet with a little bit of contact from a Rams corner, perhaps they drive down the field down 6 and take the lead there. They're going to try to do everything offensively, scheme-wise, that they do with Russell Wilson. Just the pass protection issues that Seattle has had for years is the most dangerous part of Seattle's offense for Geno Smith. He can extend plays to a sense that he can get outside the pocket and still find it, but he doesn't have the escapability or the creativity nor the rapport with receivers DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett down the field that Wilson does. Can't. He just hasn't been on the field and working enough with him. But they'll try, and they're saying they won't change the offense. Of course, every team says that. But he needs a running game. And Chris Carson is iffy to play on Sunday night. He missed the last game against the Rams on the short week with a neck condition that has come up since the end of August. Pete Carroll has said that's a week-to-week thing, whether their lead running back, Chris Carson, will be available. He was not practicing on Monday, though Carroll said he improved over the off weekend the Seahawks had. So he's more likely to play against the Steelers than he was against the Rams. Rashad Penny's supposed to be the number 1 draft pick from 2018, but he's on injured reserve. So if you don't get Collins and you won't have Penny, it's going to be Alex Collins, the former Raven, former Seahawk before Raven, running back would be the lead back. And they have to run the ball. They have to get in third and short to make it a manageable game for Geno Smith. A third and long with this offensive line is a bad proposition for even Russell Wilson. They were only 33% converting third downs before Wilson got hurt. There's just a lot of pieces that have to work for Seattle to make this successful without Wilson. They got to have the run game. They got to have the defense be much, much better than it's been league worst. That's how they're going to stay afloat here, is that it's going to have to be a team transformation rather than relying all on Geno Smith.
Greg, when Seattle does throw the football, one of the top targets will be DK Metcalf. We know he's a height, weight, speed freak kind of guy, but what area of his game has grown the most over the last couple of years that, wasn't coming as natural to him as being 6'4" and running 4'3"?
Well, the knock on him, Alex, coming out of Ole Miss was that he was just a one-trick guy that just ran go routes and was faster and bigger than everybody. And he showed from the rookie mini camp in Seattle when they traded up in the second round to get him, he showed that he can run all the routes. And he was a much more polished route runner than you got to see in college. And he has been that in Seattle. But in Brian Schottenheimer's former scheme through last season, he was still a home run guy, a deep 30, 40-yard routes type of guy, that long developing plays. And Wilson got sacked and pressured quite a bit on him. But it was big risk, big reward for Metcalf. He ended up setting the team record for yards last year with 1,303. This year's different. Shane Waldron came in from the Rams to install a quick passing game, get the ball out of Wilson's hand quickly. So Metcalf's routes are different now. Instead of 30 yards, they might be 3 yards. Think Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods out here on the West Coast. The quick, even the Steelers' short passing game of the last year or two. That's what it's become for Metcalf. So that's been a change. And he hasn't run the long, deep routes that his physical mismatch shows up when the ball's in the air. It's been more nuanced for him. His yards are down. His catches on pace are about the same as last year, but his yards are down because his routes are so much shorter, but they have to be because of the offensive line's pass protection issues. So I've been saying and writing all preseason and into the season that the guy who's going to change most in Shane Waldron's new offense is DK Metcalf because of how different his route tree is and how the ball's going to get coming to him a lot quicker than it was in the past.
Could that change? Because I'm sure there'll be an emphasis on the chunk plays now with a backup quarterback, or will the lack of an offensive line kind of force them to stay with that short passing game with Metcalf?
Right, Alex. The offensive line is the factor here that the ball has to get out of the quarterback's hand faster. Now, if you get in 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 2, then you might be able to take bigger shots with Metcalf down the field because the defense has to play more honestly, obviously. If I were defending Seattle, I would blitz, I would pressure, I would test the offensive line's pass protection, even on early downs. Seattle has a tendency to run on early downs, again, to mitigate pass rush. But at every opportunity that they're going to throw in throwing situations, I would bring as much pressure and test that offensive line, especially test Geno Smith in his first start in almost 4 years.
I wanted to ask you specifically about the offensive line. It doesn't sound like they've gotten good marks so far, which has been such a recurring theme for Seattle for years now. But specifically, where are the strengths, if any, and weaknesses? Guys like Damian Lewis, Kyle Fuller, Brandon Shell, where are the guys that Pittsburgh should really be attacking?
The strength has been in their tackles, but even they, Alex, have had problems. Dwayne Brown, the 14-year veteran, Pro Bowl veteran, is the best offensive lineman they have. He's now 36 years old. He's still the best lineman they have. He wants to play beyond this year. His contract ends after this season. The Seahawks didn't give him one. He had a hold in training camp. He's still the best one they have on left tackle. Brandon Shell came over from the Jets before last season. I think he's been probably the second best offensive lineman consistently. He's had injury issues that he's just come back from in the last couple weeks. So the right and left tackles are their better offensive linemen. Center has been an issue. They went cheap in the offseason. They didn't want to spend on Alex Mack and Corey Linsley and some of the free agents that were available. And so they went cheap and they went with in-house. And they have Kyle Fuller starting for the first time regularly since he was at college at Baylor 5 years ago at center. He's replacing Ethan Posick, who was the first time starting center last year. Posick was an LSU center, and then they made him a guard and backup tackle his first 4 years in the league as a second-round pick a few years ago. Posick's coming back from injured reserve this week, presumably to compete with Fuller, who hasn't exactly lit it up at center in pass protection or run blocking. But I don't think they're going to change center this week when they're also changing quarterbacks too. I think that Ethan Posick will take a couple weeks to compete at that position. You'll still get Kyle Fuller as your center. Again, if I was Pittsburgh, I would overload him with looks and disguises and protection problems and test him and Geno Smith pre-snap communications. Damian Lewis has been very good at guard. He was the first practice of the rookie year starter last year at LSU. He moved from right side to left side this year, so Gabe Jackson, whom they got in a trade in the offseason from the Raiders, could play his normal, familiar right guard position. Jackson's one of the better interior pass protectors in the league the last half a dozen years with the Raiders. He's been an upgrade over DJ Fluker, Mike Iupati, the road grader run blockers the Seahawks have had as interior linemen. They went away from that somewhat with Gabe Jackson by going for a pass protector first because they needed to. Maybe the offensive line has been marginally better, and again, I think some of that has been Shane Waldron getting the ball out more quickly with shorter routes, but they've still been in so many third and longs offensively over the course of the season, the first 5 games, that pass protection has remained an issue.
Greg, flipping over to the defensive side of football, a lot of familiar names. There's one starting up front with Al Woods, obviously was with the Steelers several years ago. Saw him the other night in that game. Man, he looks good. He looks strong. He looks like he can still get after it there. A lot of people probably know a little bit about Puna Ford up front, a good quality draft pick a couple years ago there. Bobby Wagner, a tackling machine once again. And then Mike Tomlin went on and on, of course, about Jamal Adams during his press conference yesterday as well, too. Look, we know what Jamal can do with inside the box, and obviously that timing that he has, and probably one of, if not the best blitzing DBs in the league, right up there with, I think, like Mike Hilton, who's now with the Bengals there. But outside of what Jamal Adams brings you in the box, I don't know. It seems like he suffers a little bit on the back end in the coverage area. Is that the main concern about Jamal Adams' game right now? Is him what he has to do when he's not within the 5 yards of the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, well, Dave, the 2 issues that people are talking about the most in Seattle right now is how much it's raining already for October and how much they're using Jamal Adams and how they're using him. He's blitzing about half the rate that he was last year. He blitzed about 10-plus times a game last season. His first with the Seahawks. He ended up setting an NFL record with 9.5 sacks, a record for defensive backs in this season. This year, they're blitzing about 5 times a game. And that is how they designed it. That's what they wanted to do coming in because they had left their back door way too open in deep pass game last year with Adams blitzing so much. They had to the first half of last season because they had 0 pass rush. Then they got Carlos Dunlap from the Bengals in a trade. He showed up the 1st of November, and he transformed the pass rush, and suddenly the front 4 was getting home. They didn't have to blitz Adams as much the latter half of last season. This season, they thought they had their front 4 pass rush set. They re-signed Dunlap. They brought in Kerry Hyder from the 49ers. They re-signed Benson Mayowa. They had a Syracuse draft pick, Alton Robinson, that was emerging in the second year. They thought they were okay in the front 4, so they could blitz schematically change and blitz Adams less so they weren't as vulnerable in the back end. Well, they haven't gotten the pass rush up front. The front 4 has not produced consistently, and that has really broken down the entire defense. They had questions at cornerback coming in. Both their starters from last year signed in free agency elsewhere. Shaquille Griffin went to Jacksonville. Quentin Dunbar signed with Detroit. He since has been cut. So they had 2 new starters at corner. One of them was supposed to be Kello Witherspoon, who I see has played only 4 snaps for the Steelers all year and was inactive against Denver last week. And the other starting corner, DJ Reed, was a waiver pickup from San Francisco last year. They moved him on one side over to the other side. Sidney Jones, former Eagles starter, is now starting at the opposite corner. They're cutting Trey Flowers. That news came out yesterday. He was a 3-year starter that they now have given up on as well. So cornerback is still unsettled. And they may end up, I don't see them changing perhaps this week, but they may end up changing here in a couple weeks with rookie Trey Brown taking over at cornerback. They haven't even seen him coming off injured reserve. That's a long way of saying they needed coverage because their pass rush wasn't getting home. Well, here's what's happened to Jamal Adams. The book, guys, is out in the NFL that if Jamal Adams is not blitzing, throw at 33. Test him in coverage, and so far he's failed. And the Rams got Cooper Kupp with them. They got Robert Woods with them. The Vikings had tight ends on him. People have just targeted him when he's not blitzing. And so it's been a catch-22 for Seattle. If you blitz, you leave your back end and Quandre Diggs, your only safety, on an island in the middle of the field in coverage. If you don't blitz them, teams are targeting Adams. So my solution would be to play more defensive backs, to go dime. One of their best playmakers is Ryan Neal, a former undrafted Southern Illinois kid who has emerged as a third down stopper. 2 games ago against San Francisco, he had 4 stops on third down, which is as many as the entire team had the week before in losing to Minnesota. Yet he went 26 snaps, his first 26 snaps on defense, Ryan Neal did 2 games ago against San Francisco. Last week against the Rams, he had just 6 plays. He was a non-factor. I would play nickel and dime, mostly dime, to get Neal on the field, because then that would free Adams up to be an in-the-box safety. If teams like the Steelers want to counter and run the ball with Najee Harris against the dime, you have a linebacker-like safety in Jamal Adams to play the run, and you can then free up Adams to blitz more because you have 5 other defensive backs if you're in dime. That's what I would do. That would take Jordan Brooks, the rookie number 1 pick from last year, linebacker, off the field. But teams have exploited Brooks in coverage too. The Rams sent Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods right at Jordan Brooks when he was on the field in the last game. I'm just making a long answer to all the issues they have defensively, but Jamal Adams as a blitzer has been a better deal for Seattle in 2 seasons than Jamal Adams, a cover guy. I'd expect the Pittsburgh to do everything that the rest of the NFL has done this year. If 33 is not blitzing, they're going to throw at him Sunday night.
You need to pull those strings and get a kilo Witherspoon back to Seattle and get that 5th round.
Yeah, I don't think they kept the receipts on that deal. That's gone. That's a sunk cost. The Steelers, that was a steal for Seattle. They were going to cut with his $4 million guarantee. What's going on there? I guess. Well, Pierre's going to start after the big play he had to end the game the other day, but no way for Witherspoon to break that lineup, huh?
Yeah, I think the tackling issues that he has, and then obviously being new to that defense, and just not being in the Steelers really preach that special teams aspect, and just so hard for a backup cornerback that doesn't play on special teams, that doesn't play in the slot to try to get snaps. And I warned Steeler fans that might be the case if this team stayed healthy, and so far it is. Look, the Denver, played a lot of too high safety, kind of, played right into the Steelers' hands, if you will. And, a lot of teams, really the MO out on the Steelers against Roethlisberger, play that single high, stop the run, and everything will be okay. What have you seen now that you obviously are worried about the back end coverage? So that would mean probably that you don't want those corners out in the island. Obviously Seattle likes to are known to have played a lot of cover 3, a lot of zone in the past. What are you seeing on those safeties? Obviously, Jamal Adams probably going to be down in the box more, so you expect to see a lot of single high?
Well, they played a lot more too high coverage this year, Dave, than they have ever before under Pete Carroll. You're right. They used to be a single safety. When they had Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, Chancellor was an in-the-box safety. Thomas was up a single guy high, but that's when you had shutdown corners. And the reason they've gone too high safeties and keep Adams back is because their corners have been a liability. Again, if they're getting the ball out quickly, any team, if you're letting the quarterback have 4, 5, 6 seconds to throw, your corners are going to get beat because of the rules, or you can't even stare at guys beyond 5 yards past the line of scrimmage if you're a defensive back. So that's been Seattle's biggest problem. And that's where they have to get fixed on defenses to get pass rush. Is it going to be done with the front 4? Is Carlos Dunlap, Benson Mayo, they're going to do their jobs? Or is it going to have to rely on blitzing? If you rely on blitzing, you're going to be in single high coverage because your best blitzer is Jamal Adams. So I'd expect a lot of too high coverage. I don't think they're going to sell out blitzing on Roethlisberger for decades has been one of the best in the league. Of course, I don't have to tell you that about picking up blitzes, eluding it, and extending plays and beating it. So I don't think this is the quarterback you blitz. The Seahawks, to the Steelers, when they look at the Steelers, I think they're saying, well, Najee Harris has 200-yard games in the last 3 weeks. We're giving up 100-plus yards a game rushing. We're going to have to stop the run first. And so you may see more base from Seattle. You may see Jamal Adams in the box, and you may see a commitment to run defense first. And that's where I would start defensively. Again, I'd get Ryan Neal on the field on dime, even in early downs, even against run, so you can get Jamal Adams in the box. But in third down passing situations, unless they change from the first 5 games scheme-wise, they're going to have Jamal Adams back in double high coverage and deep in the secondary. And again, that has been an open invitation to throw at 33 so far this year.
Greg, I wanted to kind of ask you a big picture question because when I look at Pittsburgh and Seattle, I kind of I see similar franchises on opposite coasts. Coasts, long tenured head coaches, a franchise quarterback, a lot of success, Super Bowl wins kind of early on in that time together, and it hasn't been able to be replicated since. Is there a level of dissatisfaction with Seattle for being a team that's been really good for so many years, but couldn't quite get over that hump since, 2013, 2014, even knowing how hard it is to win in the NFL? So there's still kind of that just disappointment of this team's always feels like they're so close yet so far away despite having such a talented quarterback.
Oh, you just nailed it, the quarterback. And the fact that Russell Wilson's still in his prime. Now fate finally caught up to Seattle, and he finally got hurt and missed games here. This will be the first one, as I said, in 10 years. But the urgency and the heightened expectations is because they have a $140 million quarterback still in his prime, still only now 32 years old, and they have just one Super Bowl win to show for it. Mm-hmm. The Legion of Boom and all of that, they just produced one ring. Of course, they should have had a second one, and they threw it from the 1 yard line instead of Marshawn Lynch running the ball at the end of that Super Bowl against the Patriots. Yeah. That's where the expectations, the heightened expectations and the disappointment and unfulfilledness has come from, is that they had a quarterback in their prime with a defense with some of the best defensive players in the league, number one ranked defense, and they got just one Super Bowl win out of it, and they haven't approached that since. As I said, they haven't gotten past the second round of the playoffs since then, and they're a victim of their own expectations that they raised early in the tenure. When they won the Super Bowl in the 2013 season, that was only the third, fourth year of Pete Carroll's regime out here, and they haven't won it since. So, compared to some places like Cincinnati and the Jets right now and places that haven't won in years, Seattle's on the aggregate been as good as any team in the league the last 10 years, but they only have one ring to show for it. And you look at Pittsburgh and 6 rings, and you could look in Roethlisberger's prime and say, well, they could add a couple more too. And I mean, the elite teams, the consistent playoff teams, that's what the victim of the circumstance and expectations are when you have a quarterback you're paying that much to in his prime.
Greg, we know we got to get you off. You got a call at top of the hour here. Final thoughts, a quick prediction for the game on Sunday before we get you off.
Well, again, I can't see Seattle without Russell Wilson and a defense like it is going into Pittsburgh. And I know this isn't the Steelers of past or even recent past, but I think the Najee Harris emerging in the run game for Pittsburgh is a problem for Seattle. I think pass coverage and pass rush is a problem for Seattle. Geno Smith can put up points. This isn't just the tomato can coming in and playing and backup quarterback. That's why they got him, an experienced starter, to do what he's being asked to do. But I can't see him, Geno Smith, single-handedly overtaking what his defense is going to leave for him. I think the Steelers score 30-plus points and win at home on Sunday night with a team that just is malfunctioned defensively.
Well, Greg, we certainly appreciate your first time on a Terrible Podcast. Next time we want to hear about some of them Steubenville, Ohio roots of yours, and and I know Steeler fans want to know if Russell Wilson's coming to the Steelers next year and all that good stuff. But we'll save that for another time there. And look, Alex and I certainly do appreciate it, and we want to thank you for being a guest today on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to landing in Pittsburgh on Friday, seeing my family, and be back home. Get some Primantes and have a great weekend. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And again, our thanks to Greg Bell. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at GBellSeattle. Dave, great interview. Again, thanks to Greg. Be sure to reach out to him. First time guy on the show, so let him feel the love and support the Steelers Nation. I know every week has, and thanking these guys for the time. I know he was busy, had somewhere to be as soon as he got off the call with us, but some great insight there from Greg, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. First time guy, to get this, as long as we've had this podcast, to have to come across, obviously the Steelers don't play the Seahawks every year and all, but now to have him kind of as a card in the back pocket there to call on. I want to hear more of some of those his roots to Pittsburgh, and obviously if we would have had him on longer, we were going to ask more of the magic. Everybody thinks the Steelers are going to get a veteran quarterback at some point, maybe past Ben Roethlisberger this season. I wanted to get his thoughts more on Russell Wilson, but unfortunately we ran out of time. I wanted to know what he thought maybe about Russell Wilson's future past this season and all. But really, really nice guy to spend 30 minutes. And look, he's out there in the Seattle area. It was 6:30 in the morning when we called him, and he was more than gracious to fit us in that early in the morning. So please reach out to him on the Twitter machine and thank him for his time.
And a Steubenville native. I'm not sure if that's where he grew up. I think he said he's out in the Ohio way, and I got some friends that lived and work out in Steubenville. It's a very nice town. So a little Pittsburgh connection there as well with Greg. So thank you to him. All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about, or do you want to get to some reader emails and close out today's show?
Yeah, I think we beat this thing up pretty good. I just started to dive into some Seattle tape. Obviously, we got to see Seattle play the Rams the other night there. So got a little pre-scouting done on them, but we'll save a lot of that for Friday's show when we get deeper into the preview there.
All right, Dave, so what do we have in the email machine?
Let's see what we have here. Let's start with B. Fry writes in, hi, Smith. Hey, guys, you're the best out there. Well, we appreciate that. Wondering how you would grade Alex Highsmith so far. I feel like he killed preseason but has been a bit quiet while injured a bit. Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of mentioned a moment ago. You wonder how much that groin injury, it feels like he's probably going to battle it all year. He kind of had that issue week one, didn't know if he was going to play. He did play, then misses a game, a week or two later because of it. So it's probably something he's trying to work through every single week, I'm guessing. I think his run defense has been solid. I had a video on that against Green Bay where he had like 4 solid run stops and that one beating the tight end as a pass rusher. He's been close a couple times. It hasn't been obviously as good as it was in the preseason. But I'm not as disappointed in his plays. I think maybe some other people are. I'm still seeing it on tape that I'm not super concerned about it. And I do think that injury is probably playing some sort of factor.
I would agree with you, and that's why we just talked about that a little bit ago there. You would like to see him start coming out of the back end of this, though. I think he's going to be playing some, at least this coming week. The Steelers front as a whole going to kind of go against really a suspect offensive line. Hopefully that groin is about back to as close to as best as it's going to be the rest of the season there. Don't put a tight end on him. He'll snatch them right out of the way. And some of these tackles, too, he's doing a good job against the run. And, one of the things you worry about sometimes with these young outside linebackers with the Steelers is, okay, they can get after the passer. How long does it take them to become good against the run? And I think he's really matured very, very quickly, soundly in that area. Now, sometimes he'll get himself caught inside there. That's going to happen, I think. But overall, teams have got to know they better be careful about putting a tight end out there, and some of these tackles as well too. He's already shown it's out there on tape that he can pull them right out of the way and snatch them and get to the ball carriers. So I think the bigger aspect is just seeing him continue to progress as a pass rusher there, and how much is that groin playing into him kind of being in, I guess maybe you'd call it a little bit of a lull right now, but this is a guy that I think him and T.J. Watt both, I think, should be expected to have some pretty decent game between the two of them against Seattle.
Yeah, I hope so, although I think Highsmith will have the tougher matchup facing Dwayne Brown, as Greg mentioned, a veteran left tackle, 36 years old, seen it all, and probably their best offensive lineman. So it will be a challenge for Highsmith, but one he's there to win nonetheless.
Boy, Greg thinks thinks things ain't going to go well for Seattle these next couple weeks, and hard to disagree when you lose your franchise quarterback and your defense hasn't been playing good at all. It does set you up for disaster. We talked about the Steelers have got to win the games that we think they can win, and I don't know about you, but before the season started, I thought, this game against the Seahawks, even though it's in Pittsburgh, it could be an L for the Steelers. Well, now it's become one of those ones that you think, because of the quarterback situation, that they really better win.
Yeah, they need to. Not only because it's a winnable opponent without their quarterback, but this is your difference between 3-3, and your season really feels like it's back on track going into the bye, or do you want to be 2-4 going into the bye week and potentially being 3-4, whatever games it's going to be out by the time you come back for the Browns game, which will be a big showdown in week 8. So yeah, this is a potential. We don't want to be too hyperbolic about it, but potential kind of season-defining week for Pittsburgh.
All right, Frank Mankin writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, Frank from North Carolina. New name, too, to us. So if this is your first time, Frank, thank you. I know these last few weeks it's been talked about JuJu and Joe Hayden probably not being back next year. My question is, it's not really talked about is Terrell Edmunds. He's a free agent at the end of the year. Do you guys think he'll be back, or do you think they'll be looking for a strong safety in the draft? Thank you for great Steelers content you guys have. Thanks for the email, Frank. Alex, you want to take a stab at that first?
Yeah, we had talked about it extensively when they declined the fifth-year option on him, and the historical precedent for that says whenever this team declines fifth-year options, when teams do it in general, those guys often don't come back. And so, I think his play has warranted it. I don't know where the market value is going to come in at, and just knowing all the other holes this team has to address, potentially, outside corner, although maybe Pierre and Sutton are your corners next year. Do you want to have to expend the energy and potential draft capital on a strong safety? I'm probably not in that camp. So I don't know what he's going to want. That'll obviously determine, some of those chances of returning. But obviously the fact that he declined the option did not bode well for his chances of coming back. And I don't think his play, while it's been solid, doesn't seem to be much different than what he's done in past years. So I don't know what will change in Pittsburgh's mind to want to bring him back unless they could get him for, pennies on the dollar.
I don't think it's a slam dunk he's gone, but I would bet on him being gone. The thing in his favor is that the position he plays and the amount of money that normally goes with that, with non-top 5-10 players at position, is usually very, very affordable there. He's not a premier strong safety in the league. However, we have seen him take small steps, I think, in the right direction. They would probably like him back, and then depending on draft capital, it'd be nice not to have to spend it on an early round strong safety, right? Unless that name is the Palomalo kid.
Right.
But even he, at least I get to feel early. I haven't gone deep into his tape by any stretch of imagination, but he's not a first round guy, I don't think. I think he's more around probably a third or fourth round guy there.
Neither was Terrell Edmunds, so that means he'll take him.
There you go. I guess what I'm getting at there, I think it's going to come down to money. If he continues to make the small incremental steps that he's made so far, the Steelers could do worse, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. When you have a playmaker like Minka, like Edmunds obviously is not much of a playmaker in coverage, but when you're pairing that with an ultra playmaker in Fitzpatrick, then I think they kind of work and play off each other well. If Minka wasn't a playmaker, if you didn't have a free safety that was a big ball hawk, and you have two safeties that don't take the football away, that's going to be an issue. But when you have Edmunds and Minka, I think it's a good pairing.
I mean, yeah, and the flip side of you says, well, if he starts making plays, he's going to increase his market value, so he'll be gone. If he doesn't start making plays, then why would the Steelers want him, back there? So it's kind of a catch-22, if you will. I don't think you can totally discount him being back in 2022, but if he does come back, it would be on a peanuts salary, if you will, I would think. I would not be opposed to it as long as he continues to make these steps forward, but I don't think he's a guy that you spend a lot of money on to lock up for the next 2 or 3 years either.
Yeah, we'll see. It's interesting, though. I mean, I could see it go either way, and like I said, I was super wrong about them not picking up the option on him in the first place, so I'm a poor person to ask when it comes to predicting Edmunds-related things.
There has been some progress there, though, right? The last couple of years. Yeah. Noticeable progress. It's just he's not making plays that you would hope to see, a strong safety make.
Yeah, I think his coverage even this year has improved. Look at some of the numbers. He's actually graded out better than a lot of guys. But you think about the Randall Cobb touchdown, and he has inside leverage, and he just kind of gives that up and loses a foot race to 37-year-old Randall Cobb. He's not 37, he's 31 or whatever. But that's just one of those moments where you go, oh, yeah, Edmunds is still, he's very much capped in terms of where his ceiling's at. He's basically at, I think, his ceiling right now.
If you did not replace that position in the draft, okay, what would it cost you to equal or better him in free agency?
It probably wouldn't cost a lot, to be honest, because safety's not a super expensive position. You're looking for a run stuff for a box type of guy, and you can probably get that guy fairly cheap. Now, you might not get the overall athlete that Edmonds is, but sometimes he doesn't always play to that athleticism, and you don't always get the benefit of it. So, I mean, I don't think it'd be a terrible cost in terms of free agency. But then it's just newness, and you never know how a guy's going to play. Yeah, is he going to fit well, and just all that kind of stuff you have to consider as well. And if you're a draft pick, then you're using draft capital, which you're already limited in. So I would be okay with him coming back for, I don't know, what's the number, 6 million, 7 million?
I would think it's lower than that.
5?
Personally, yeah, 4, 3, 4. I mean, look what Sutton got. I mean, I know he's not a safety, but I mean, this is a guy that was kind of, up and coming. You was wondering if you're going to be able to retain him, and look what they got him for. I would think it'd have to. I don't think you would pay him more than Sutton. I think you're going to have the hierarchy in there, and obviously we all know that Minka more likely going to be top 2, top 3 in the league. Safety money goes there, so you can't invest that much more. I would put the number around what Cameron Sutton got and nothing more.
Yeah, which was 4.5 for Sutton, right? 2 years, $9 million, I believe, on right. Sutton, with avoidable years. But putting that aside, then what's the market going to be? For a young guy like Edmonds, still 25 years old, a good athlete, but is there going to be a big market for him? I mean, I doubt it, but what market will exist for him, I couldn't tell you.
Right, there might be that one, and all it takes is one team that's got the cap space and looking for, that pedigree, and a guy, to maybe pay him $5 or $6 million for him to go.
Yeah, so we'll see. Long answer. Short answer to a long
discussion. It's a good question. It won't be the last time we talk about it, that's for sure. Stephen O writes in, hello, David Alex, been listening for years and enjoyed a great analysis from you two. My question or comment concerns Harris and his cramping on Sunday. It seems difficult to ensure players such as Harris, who is so integral of your offense and never comes off the field, stays properly hydrated. I know it was quite hot and humid Sunday at Heinz Field, but not having him available in the fourth quarter could have had huge impact on the outcome of the game as the weather starts to cool. Maybe this will become less of an issue, but was just curious about your thoughts. Keep it up, guys, and thank you, Stephen O. Stephen O, look, we get it. It could have been a bit disastrous not having that guy on the field there, It's okay. I think it's okay to be upset that he wasn't on the field, whether it's on him or the training staff or what have you. I think it's worth questioning why that happened more.
Yeah, I think you always want to evaluate, and as a team and as professionals, you go back and look at it and say, what do we do wrong? What can we do better? How do we address this problem so it doesn't happen again? So that's just kind of basic, fixing stuff that any competent organization and people who pride themselves in their work should do. And I'm positive those guys are doing that. So I don't have any great answers for you. Sometimes it does happen if it's just hot and you're getting the ball a million times and that kind of stuff. But sure, you can always look back and say, what do we miss? How do we get better?
And I think it's okay to criticize to a point there, but I think there comes a time where we need to talk to more of an expert on this as well too. So as part of, hopefully, if we have Dr. Mel on Friday, we'll talk about groins, and we'll talk about the whole cramping thing, and is this something that the Steelers could do better? Did everybody learn some valuable lessons maybe in these first 6 weeks when it comes to this kind of stuff? It's okay to initially point the finger, but it's also important that you just go beyond that and try to find more answers to stuff that maybe in fields that you not expertise in. And I like to speculate about a groin. I'm not an expert in it, nor am I an expert in proper, Lord knows I'm not an expert in proper hydration. Well, I mean, I hydrate myself. I hydrate myself with the wrong things. So.
Yeah. Hey, Najee, here's this Mountain Dew. That'll get you ready. That's what plants crave.
Good. Hey, props to you to fit. That's what pants crave. I didn't realize you are up on that film. What a funny film that is.
One of the 5 I've watched. It's a really good one. But and maybe this is because I don't have the knowledge in this area, but I try to give more grace with this stuff because it's the human body, and sometimes you just can't control this stuff. I mean, you can't. If trainers were that good and they could prevent this stuff perfectly 100% of the time, then they'd be the best people in the world and probably not be trainers for a football team. They'd be doing something else. They'd be saving lives in some other capacity. So sometimes it just happens. It's injuries. It's the human body. It's art, not science, and you can't control everything.
It's what plants crave. I can't believe you get the pop culture movie reference of the day. Kudos to you.
My first and only one ever on this show.
I'm extremely proud of you. About probably as proud of you as me getting that cartoon the other day on the Twitter machine.
Yeah, you have never watched Dragon Ball though, have you? I don't know how you get these references. But you do.
Look, I have to stay up with the kids, man. I have to watch some of this stuff and all. So
there are no kids watching it. It's just sad, depressed 20-year-olds like me.
All right. Well, I knew what you were talking about. I got the reference. No, I don't watch those things, episodes. I don't have a huge background in knowing the characters and all, but I did get that one there. So what you're telling me is offering up the idea that Najee drinks a 6-pack of Monster Zero Ultra before game would probably not be good advice.
Might be frowned upon. I literally don't know how you do it. I don't know how your body sustains like the coffee and the Diet Mountain Dew and the Monster Energies that you have. I don't know how you're here right now. I don't know how we're having this conversation, to be honest with you.
Look, when they cut me open, it won't be for science. It'll be for science fiction.
Yeah, like they can probably just throw some pack of Mentos in your body and watch it.
Well, the stuff I put in my body, it is a wonder I'm still alive. Bryce writes in. Oh, Bryce, you write some books, brother. These Gruden emails reveal a lot of things. And one of those things is what I wrote in about a few weeks ago, and that's Bruce Allen and the Washington football team were a trash organization. I'm more prone to believe that Dwayne Haskins said about his time there. That when I first wrote in about this, I was 90% sure then. I'm 97% sure now. I could be wrong. So that's a 3% left. Just a thought. I don't know what the question is. I guess he's trying to say that Dwayne Haskins will be very serviceable because of the organization he came out of, I guess.
Yeah, I think he's just saying that Haskins was not put in a position with a team that was in that set him up for success. And some of that is true. I mean, Haskins was there for just 2 years. He worked with a good coach in Ron Rivera. So, I don't want to put it all on that. What Bruce Allen is saying in emails from, whatever time frame that was may or may not have that much of an impact on Haskins. But yeah, I mean, the idea that Washington is like a poorly run franchise is not a new thought on anyone. I mean, it's a mess of a franchise in an ownership standpoint. So like, that's not, I don't think, new news for this team about the issues that Bruce Allen, Dan Snyder, and those guys have.
Make no mistake, Haskins has some ugly tape too.
Yeah, and it sounds like Haskins could do things better himself. So I'm past the Haskins Washington phase and just focused on him in Pittsburgh now and what he's done in Pittsburgh so far, and that's kind of where my focus is at.
He says one of the ways the Steelers should address JuJu issue is using Eric Ebron some this week at that fourth wide receiver role. While not as reliable as JuJu, of course, I think he can run some of those JuJu underneath routes and create some mismatches. However, I'm not sure the Steelers really know how to use a receiving tight end like Ebron and create a way, so I'm not sure this will happen. Consequently, if Ebron can't carry some of that receiving load left by JuJu's injury, then I think the Steelers should try to trade him during the bye week for a 6th-round draft pick. Agree, disagree, and why? Will Ebron be asked to do probably more in this offense without JuJu in it? Probably. Should they? Sure, I'm okay, but I really think they need to start finding ways to use Freiermuth more first, to be honest with you. There are some third down situations, though, when you're out of obvious run situations where I think Ebron can benefit you down the middle of the field off play action or what have you. Yes. As far as Ebron passed there and trading him during the bye week, I don't expect the Steelers to do anything while they are technically in a race. Okay, so aren't you glad that they haven't traded James Washington yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very glad.
For starters. So secondly, I don't think Ebron's going anywhere as long as the Steelers think they can have a shot. And with the trade deadline, in other words, they would probably have to lose their next 2 or 3 games because the trade deadline, what do we say, like November 2nd or whatnot, right around in there. Things would have to go bad or get back to going bad these next 2 or 3 games for them to consider trading away Ebron. Now, if you got to that point where you're out of it and it's the trade deadline staring you right in the face, heck yeah, man. If you can get a 6th or a 7th round pick for Ebron, do it. because but in between there, the part of the minutia is seeing what they do with Ebron.
Yeah, they won't be sellers if they're competitive, and hopefully they will be. I know Jonathan Hightrader has an article with a similar idea today talking about Zach Gentry's kind of emergence and his better play. Could that, in theory, maybe make Ebron more expendable on this team, kind of really reduce that role? But to the overall question about replacing JuJu, I'm with you, Dave. I'd rather have Freiermuth do that, to be that sure-handed, trusted guy that can make those tough catches. That's not Ebron's wheelhouse. That's Freiermuth's. And so I think that's the guy you want to look towards, maybe being someone who steps up in those weighty moments I mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah, look, this is a guy, you've got a second-round draft pick in. He's the future. I mean, you already, you see the importance of getting some of that, getting a predominant part of your offense run through Najee Harris. You got to figure out a way of how to properly use Pat Freiermuth even more, especially in the red zone now, with not having JuJu. And you just got to be more committed to trying to make him a more of an integral part of the offense, and more so than Ebron, in my opinion. So we'll see if they're able to do that.
And real quick, you saw that on Sunday. 2 catches for 7 yards. Looks like nothing, but both of those catches came on third down, and both those catches moved the stick. So he made a big impact. So two catches for 7 yards doesn't look like anything, but you look at the actual tape and the context, those are the areas that he can continue to win in on third and short going forward.
Good point by you, Alex. From Brett Now here. Hey, Dave and Alex, great job on the coverage. As always, I was wondering about your thoughts on the tight end position so far. Specifically, do you see any scenario where the team brings back Ebron next year based on his performance this season? He says veterans, minimum salary, etc. Has Gentry done enough this year to at least give you hope that he can be the number 2 tight end next season? To me, that could be the case. He says, with the shortage of picks for next year, what are the odds that they draft one? Oh, man, he finds a way to get about 8 questions in here. Or is it likely that other positions are bigger need and that Gentry and Freiermuth are what you're going to have next year with Rader or another minimum veteran free agent as the number 3? All right, a lot of tight end stuff there, Alex, to chew on.
Yeah, just to answer that quickly, no, I don't think Ebron's going to come back. Can Gentry be a number 2? He's showing something there, but they'll have to add, obviously, and let those guys kind of compete. But Freiermuth's your starter next year. Ebron's gone. Gentry will be here. They'll add somebody in some capacity. Rader kind of still number 4, quad A, NFL type player, and go from there.
Gentry should be there at least competing. Whether or not he makes the final cut, we'll see. I was a bit surprised that he showed some improvement definitely this offseason, and he had to. He absolutely had to. Are we going to see enough in these next 12 weeks to slam dunk say Gentry's going to be on this 53 in 2022? I don't think we've seen that yet. We need to. It'd be great if they get to that point. And I think Ebron's gone regardless. Even minimum salary, that guy don't play special teams. He drops a lot of footballs. Probably, I don't know him, but probably not the best guy to have around some younger guys in the locker room. I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. He seems like a good leader. He seems like a fun personality. I think people like him. But I mean, just for the role and being a number 2 tight end that can't block, it's going to be Freiermuth's time next season.
Right, and you're definitely not going to pay him more than you're going to pay. Well, Freiermuth's going to be on a rookie contract. So now, do you draft one with limited draft capital? If you do, it would be somehow you got a hold of a late 7th round, something or another, and did that, or you brought in about 2 or 3 of the undrafted free agents to try to work in that role. So I would be after spending a 2nd round draft pick on it this year, and knowing what they have in draft capital now, obviously that can change. I would be against them spending one on a tight end.
Yeah, if they do, it'll be late, but they barely have any late draft picks. Just go sign a veteran blocker. They just need to do that more often. Just get a big, quasi-offensive lineman in there just to be like a number 2, number 3. Freiermuth is your number 1, and let Gentry probably, compete as well.
Stephen F. from New Jersey writes in, we got a lot of new emailers, Alex. That's exciting to see. Hey, guys, first time, long time. My brother Kevin and I have been coming to the site for probably 7 or 8 years now, and it's our go-to for everything Steelers. Thank you for that. My question is about the state of the Steelers' current inside linebackers. We're only 5 games in, but I'm wondering how you guys would rate the play of Joe Schobert Schubert. Do you guys think him and Bush could be a long-term pairing? I know we have a few years left to figure things out, but has Devin Bush done enough in your eyes to warrant a second contract and be a long-term fixture at inside linebacker? Also, a little side question, what's your favorite Motorhead album, Dave? You answer the first parts there.
Yeah, I guess I cannot answer the second part.
My answer is going to be yes.
Yeah, Schubert's played well. I mean, it's been up and down. It's tough to play off-ball linebacker. You're covering. You got to do run, pass, your blitz. You're covering tight ends, receivers occasionally in this system. So, that's a tough job. But I've been happy with him overall. Bush, I'm just going to let the season play out. Obviously, he's had some injuries he's been dealing with, so it's hard to get a full evaluation on him. So we'll just kind of see how he looks, beginning to end. But as of this moment, has he done enough? Probably not. But, I just want to see how the rest of the season goes.
Long-term, Schubert and Bush, if you got next year out of the duo, I would be surprised. I think maybe that can happen, though. Once again, at what point do you want to put the draft capital in there? And do you have it to put into the position? My hope is that Joe Schubert plays well enough to warrant him being kept around at least one more season to give you some stability inside along with Devin Bush. Is Devin Bush played himself into another contract yet?
I said probably not.
I don't think he has either. I know that's going to make a lot of people mad, but and I think we had this conversation earlier in the offseason there. We got to see more. I think. Now I do like the chances of those two being together at least next season if Joe could, plays okay, Favorite Motorhead album, man. You want to send me down a wormhole? Overkill, Bomber. Geez, I liked some of their what I would consider maybe fairly newer stuff as well too. 1916 is a good album. Boy, I love that ballad that he did. A lot of people this might surprise people, but Ain't No Nice Guy After All that Lemmy did with Ozzy Osbourne back in the day as well too. I think that's a very nice written ballad on top of it. So, man, I miss Lemmy for sure. Motorhead, premier rock and roll band in my eyes.
And I understood almost none of those words.
Oh, man, if you got put on a desert island and all you could have was Kiss albums and Motorhead albums and maybe some Iron Maiden out, I'm starting to turn into the Jerk here. That's all I need. Have you ever seen the Jerk? You've never seen the Jerk, have you?
I also understood none of those words.
Oh, man, you got to, a movie you have got to see is The Jerk with Steve Martin. Oh, and now there's probably some things that are probably not. Well, there's no probably. There's a lot of politically incorrect stuff in that movie. But what a great! There's a scene in there where he's leaving his wife, and he says, "I don't need nothing. I don't need nothing from you." And then he starts walking towards the front door, and he says, "Except maybe this ashtray. I need this ashtray." And by the time he gets out the door, he's got like all this handful of stuff that I don't need anything. But I need this paddleball game, and it's just back then that was a huge scene that everybody. You got to watch that, man. You got to watch The Jerk. But huge Motorhead fan for sure, and I know people raised Dave to move on from that question there, so I will. Let's see here if I can get one more out of here. Maybe. I'm not seeing any more here worth hitting on. Clock management from Sean and Kim. Good morning, guys. It's hard to be negative about a win that we desperately needed, but I thought it would come up on the Monday podcast, and it didn't. When you're 1-3 in a must-win game, why the hell is Tomlin so conservative with 1:30 left on the clock in the second quarter, 2 timeouts, and a Hall of Fame quarterback, and just to be satisfied to go into halftime? I did comment, I think, on this during the game. We did not comment on the podcast the other day. Grateful for the win, but this has bothered me ever since halftime. The way the game was so close at the end, would have lost and would have personally blamed clock management for not trying to score. You guys are the best. Keep up the good work. It's fair, Sean. I think it's fair. You had the timeouts in that situation. You had the clock. You were seemingly moving the football there. I don't like what happened there.
The part I didn't like about it, like if they just wanted to run the ball and that was it, I could have lived with that. Like I was okay with that. But it was just like this weird, are we in or are we out? They started throwing, I think, an RPO in the first play, then they ran it, then they got a good gain, then they called timeout, then they threw it and ran it. Just like they didn't have a good plan. Are we actually going to drive here, or are we going to just go into the half? And they just kind of going back and forth every single play. And that's when things can get weird and you can have mistakes and just, stuff like that. So I didn't like that philosophy of it. I was cool with either decision, but kind of pick a strategy and stick with it.
When did the penalty happen with ineligible down the field? It happened during that drive, didn't it?
I didn't think so. I thought that happened somewhere else in the game. I don't remember.
Let me pull up the game book here because I think that was the second play of that drive. All right, 1st and 10 at the Steelers 10, 1:31 left. Najee Harris, right guard for 3 yards. Okay, not a successful play. Kind of a fill them out play, I guess. But the clock running there, and the next play you did not run, and 32 seconds went off the clock on 2nd and 7. So that's faux pas number 1. All right. And that play, yes, that was the ineligible down the field pass at that point. So it pushes you back 5 yards at that point. But even so, 2nd and 12 from your own 8 with 54 seconds left in the half. And I'm guessing the mindset is let's not screw this up. It's a 2nd and long situation. We try to throw for the sticks here. It gets picked off there. We're deep enough in our league. We'll give them 3 points. It almost felt like a wave the white flag situation after you got the ineligible down the field penalty. I get getting mad because I was kind of upset in a moment too. Man, you got, let's get 3 here. The offense has been moving a little bit there. Denver's on their heels and all. I get that. The mistake was running 32 seconds off after the first run. If you want to get mad at anything in that scenario there, I think that's what you get mad at right there.
Yeah, well, it just seemed to indicate that they were going to take the ball into the half, which fine. But then they threw the ball that next play, that 2nd and 7, which I believe was an RPO to be fair. So there's a run option in there. But then, okay, so they get the penalty, they run the ball. Then the next play, they pass the ball, then they run the ball. So it was like pick a lane. Are we in or are we out? I started at 10. I understand they take the ball to half. That's fine. But it just was haphazard. Yeah,
it was almost like let's wait and see what happens on this next play.
Right. Yeah. That was the part that I didn't like.
And then go, okay, maybe we should sit on it. Okay, well, let's take, look, it's a fair email for sure, Sean and Kim. But I really think, Sean, that it came down to once they got that penalty there and you ran off all that clock time, you're thinking, let's not do anything stupid here. And the stupidity was they just didn't know really what they wanted to do, probably. And to use the 32 seconds after the first down, sure, it's okay to be mad there, Sean.
Yeah, fair point.
All right, what else do we have there? We pretty informative show overall. Thanks again to Greg Bell from the Herald, right? What's the name of the paper?
Tacoma News Tribune.
News Tribune. Okay. Follow him on Twitter, too, as well, too, and reach out to him. Alex and I will be back on Friday. Hopefully, we'll have an interview with Dr. Mel in there talking about your groin and you and proper hydration. And obviously, Alex and I will get deeper into the Seahawks tape and fully preview that game as well, too. So, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Easy for me to say. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.